Hey everybody, I hope you're all having a great day. I just wanted to do a short video really explaining a little bit more about what EMDR is. So I was trained in EMDR last year, and it's in conjunction with the other therapies that I do within my business with helping my clients. It's really revolutionized my business, if I'm honest, because it's really helping those who have trauma, PTSD, complex PTSD, really help themselves. But I'm getting a lot of people say, hey Catherine, what exactly is EMDR? So I thought I'd just do a really quick short video, and I won't make it too sciencey, about what EMDR is. So EMDR stands for, wait for it, eye movement, desensitization and reprocessing, okay? Bit of a mouthful. Now, although it is called eye movement, actually EMDR uses what we call bilateral stimulation. So that means we are using two sides. So with the eye movements, you might be, if I'm working with you, where you are going like this, and we can use that. Equally so, I use sometimes what are called theratappers, and it's in each hand. So you get a vibration in each hand. So it's not like EFT where you're tapping here. It literally is, hey Emma, it is bilateral stimulation. Walking is bilateral stimulation. So you are using your left and your right hand side of your brain. So why is it so good then for trauma, PTSD, complex PTSD? Well, if you imagine that you've been in a trauma, okay, now that could be when you were a child, it could be a car accident, it might be domestic abuse, narcissistic abuse, whatever it is, you've had that trauma. And when you are in that trauma, your body has a trauma response. It will go into fight, flight, or freeze, or even fawn. And I talk a lot about fawn because I deal a lot with those who've had narcissistic abuse. But let's, for argument's sake, for this particular live, I'm going to talk about fight, flight, and freeze. So if you are in that traumatic event, your brain makes a judgment call whether to go into fight, flight, or freeze. Now, I won't go into all of the science about what happens with your autonomic nervous system, your parasympathetic, your sympathetic, but just know that your brain makes a judgment in that moment to go into fight, flight, or freeze because it believes your life is in danger. So you imagine your brain's number one job is literally survival, to keep you alive. It's not, sadly, to keep you happy or wealthy or successful. You've got to be intentional with all of that. This is about you actually making sure, right, I'm going to have someone at the door in a second, so my dog is going to go wild, so I might have to go to the door and then come back. So bear with me 1 second, okay? Because I can see them out there. My dog is sat on my desk and she is going to go crazy in a second. As you will hear, she's going to go into fight, definitely, as someone is going to come to my door. So you're going to have to bear with me 1 second as I wait for them to get out and come to the door. So basically, I'll carry on in a second until my dog goes wild, as you will see, and she'll go into fight, trauma response, as someone's coming to the door. So basically, we make a decision in that moment, fight, flight, or freeze. And if you imagine, and I talk to my clients a lot about this, about an analogy of if a lion was going to eat you and you were going to die. So whatever your moment of trauma is, you will go into fight, flight, run away, or freeze. You'll just literally freeze. Now, I know for me, when I was in my marriage, I was very much in, here we go. Right, bear with me 1 second. So, sorry about that, I'm back. You can tell my dog went into fight response then because there was somebody at the door. So, I know, my dog is crazy. If you should see her, she's this big and she's like, "Arr!" and everything. Let's come back to a serious subject now that's really, really dear to my heart about the EMDR. So, when you're in that traumatic event, your brain makes a judgment call. What's going to be the safest trauma response for you to do to stay alive? Fight, flight, or freeze. It goes into your autonomic nervous system. This isn't you going, what shall I do? Fight, flight, or freeze in this moment. It doesn't happen like that. Your brain literally takes over. Your amygdala, your fear center, sends a message, all the way into your nervous system, and bang, you go into fight, flight, or freeze. Now, what happens with PTSD and complex PTSD in particular is sometimes when you are in that traumatic event, it gets stuck. Now, there's a part of our brain, the limbic system, the emotional part of our brain, and I don't want to get too sciencey, but I think it's really important for you to understand this, that our limbic system is our emotional part of the brain. And in our limbic system, thanks, Yvette. In our limbic system, we have the amygdala, which is our fear center. And we also have the hippocampus, which is our memory center. And the hippocampus is where our memories are all nicely filed away, our long and short-term memories, so that we can look back on things and we know that they are in the past. Now, what happens with trauma and PTSD and complex PTSD is when you are in that trauma, when you are in that event, it doesn't finish processing. Your hippocampus, where your memory center is, hasn't time-stamped it that it's in the past. It feels like it is still in the present. Hey, Debbie. I'm sure your weather's much warmer in California than here. So your hippocampus hasn't stamped it that it's in the past. So when you are in the present and you have a trigger, now that could be a sight, a sound, a smell, whatever it is, it elicits this emotional response in your body. You might start shallow breathing, just as if you're going into fight or flight mode, okay? You might start picking your skin. You might start clenching your fist. You might start to, your heart rate starts to go up. And these can be trauma responses of external triggers that are taking you back to being in that traumatic event, because your brain hasn't finished processing that actually that event is now a memory in the past and you are safe in the present. Now, if you think about this, I know certainly for me, when I came out of my marriage, I had PTSD, complex PTSD, and lots of triggers then would elicit this nervous system dysregulation. So when you are feeling it in your body, remember, because you don't think sadness, you don't think anger, you feel it. And how I work with my clients is a lot of the body stuff. You know, trauma is a somatic experience. You feel it in your body. Remember, a thought is just a thought, but it's what goes on in your body that stops you functioning. Rapid heart rate, clenching fists, tension, your neck goes up, your shoulders are up here, you feel like you haven't got a voice. All of those things, and that cortisol that is all trapped in your body can lead to disease and illness further down the line if we don't finish processing it. So if you find sometimes that, if you know in the past you've had a traumatic event, whether that be a single event or abuse of some kind, and you find that you keep feeling these things in your body, your nervous system is dysregulated, then this can be signs of trapped trauma. And trauma gets trapped in our body because ultimately you should be able to think of your traumatic events without a nervous system dysregulation. You should be able to think of these things and know that, yes, it was horrible, but without that nervous system dysregulation. Because at the end of the day, it is in the past. It is a memory. You are safe now. So people who have got PTSD and complex PTSD, it's just an information processing disorder. The part of your brain, the hippocampus, hasn't stamped that event as being in the past. So every time you get a trigger in the present moment, your brain thinks, the lion's about to eat you again, so you need to go into fight, flight, or freeze. And that's when you feel it all in your body, because it hasn't recognized that you're safe, you're in the present now. It's okay now. You're not about to be eaten by a lion. So what EMDR does by using bilateral stimulation is it helps your brain timestamp the memory into the past. Now, EMDR is an 8-step protocol and it's all about safety. And I've had a number of clients now come to me who've had EMDR, but it's been rushed. It's so important that safety is priority. Self-regulation is priority. So before we even get to any of the processing of these memories, it is all about giving you tools. And we call these tools in EMDR resourcing. So you get resourcing tools so that you are able to self-soothe and self-regulate. Because when I get to be doing the processing, we process your worst memory, your worst thought. And we attach certain negative cognitions to that and then we process it. So you might initially, as I'm charging you up to think of that worst memory, okay? You might be a 10 out of 10 with distress and you are feeling that charge in your body. You might be crying. So I need to know that if you feel too charged, you've got a toolkit that we can just regulate your nervous system again. And we call this pendulation, going back and forth like this. It's EMDR is what we call a very titrated process when done correctly as well. It's really, really important. So I'm a web maker in British American Tobacco. I want to speak with you. Okay, drop me a message. Absolutely, drop me a message. So at the end of the day, what EMDR does is you've got to think of that memory, but then by using the bilateral stimulation, and there's other techniques that we use around all of this, attaching negative cognitions, you're going to go from a 10 out of 10 distress thinking about it to a 1 or a 0 out of 10. So you are able to think of that traumatic memory without that nervous system dysregulation. And for me, watching my clients go from this to like, hold on a second, I can't feel it in my body. I've spent 15 years every time I think about this, feeling it in my body, and I don't feel anything now. I can think about it, but I don't feel anything in my body. That is powerful stuff. So if you are finding that you are feeling things in your body from external triggers, that could be a trauma response taking you back to certain events in your life that you haven't finished processing. And I won't go through all the science about why you haven't finished processing it, because actually we don't really know why that happens. But you never see animals in the wild with PTSD or complex PTSD. They just finish processing it. But because we're so humanized and social creatures, we stop ourselves sometimes from finish processing those memories. We don't shake, because shaking sometimes, you see animals shake, that's a trauma response to them. We wouldn't do that, would we? We'd be like, mustn't shake, mustn't shake. Sometimes we stop ourselves from crying and showing our emotion because we think we shouldn't be doing that. But actually, we need to learn to listen to our body more, because trauma is a mind and body experience. So what EMDR will do is it will help timestamp those memories that are causing you to be triggered in the present, thinking the lion's going to eat you, into the past, so that when you have things happening around you, you're not going back to fight, flight or freeze thinking you are in that event that the lion's about to eat you, because it isn't. Because in the present you are safe, you are okay. So I just wanted to come on board. Apologies that I had to nip off halfway in to kind of get my dog, who was having a fight response to the delivery man and everything. It's my daughter's birthday tomorrow, so I've had bits and bobs being delivered as well. But I hope that explains. If anyone's got any questions, you can post them below. That's absolutely fine. I didn't want to make it too sciencey, but that part of your brain, when you are in this part of your brain, I call this online, your prefrontal cortex, we know we are safe, we are logical, we are rational, we are in the present. When you get a trigger, boom, you go offline into your limbic system, that emotional part of your brain, because you've got those triggers and your brain thinks, oh, the lion's about to eat me. Oh my God, I need to go fight, flight or freeze. I need to be like this. But you don't, because you are safe now. This trauma is a memory. It's in the past. So we need to make sure when we're using EMDR that we stamp that memory, stamp that event, that it is in the past. It is filed away. Doesn't take away the horrible things that may have happened to you. But what it does do is it allows you to think about it without that nervous system dysregulation, because that's what causes the problem. Whether you have too much cortisol in your body, and we know 80% of disease now, at least, is caused by stress. And there's so much research now that those who've had childhood trauma have a higher propensity for disease later on in life. That doesn't mean if you're watching this and you know you had a horrific childhood that you're going to get disease, because we can change it. We can release that trauma from your body. We can work on it by using somatic therapies such as EMDR, okay? So I hope that helps. I hope that's kind of explained it a little bit. Don't want to go into loads of science about it, but it is fascinating. When you understand what's going on with the brain and realize that when you are reacting to things, that's not you being weak. That's not your fault. It's your brain thinking, this is how we need to react to stay safe. Because your brain thinks, well, hold on a second, we're alive from yesterday, so what we're doing must be okay. But if it's stopping you living your life personally, professionally, then it could be trapped trauma in your body, because you're getting these triggers and you're feeling it in your body. And that's why when I work with my clients, I help them with RTT to really upgrade their subconscious belief, because many of them have this lack of self-worth and don't feel good enough. That was wired in their childhood, so we rewire their brain with that. And then EMDR is about releasing that stuck trauma. And I find that together and other techniques that I use just work beautifully for people, because at the end of the day, if we only upgrade subconscious belief but you've got trapped trauma, you're still going to get triggers. If we only release the trapped trauma but you've got a subconscious belief of not being good enough, you're still going to have some triggers around there as well. Thank you for a snapshot of EMDR. I'll be doing with counselling next week. Hope they do it right. PS, you are the only one I've chosen to listen to about this. Oh, California. Oh, I'd love to. I love California. Debbie, my sister, lives in Phoenix, Arizona as well. And I was actually in California last year when I went and did my training with Brendan Burchard as well. So I love California. It's one of my favourite states. And that, don't tempt me, Debbie. You know, it's definitely something on my agenda. So I hope that explains it a little bit, because I know sometimes you see these things out there, you see what all of these are, we wonder what they are, but at the end of the day, I really wanted to do a video explaining it, because I really believe that when you understand what's going on in your brain and what is happening, the shame and the guilt start to come away. You don't think, oh my God, I'm weak, I can't cope. It's not you being weak. It's your brain making a judgment. It's taking over. It's your autonomic nervous system taking over for you to elicit that fight, flight or freeze response. So I hope that helps. Any questions, please feel free to ask. I hope you all have a wonderful day. I've just been bowling. It's my daughter's birthday tomorrow, so she's upstairs with her friend. They're having a sleepover, and then we're out for dinner later on as well. But I just thought, I've had quite a few people ask me questions and everything as well. So thanks for that from Argentina. I love Argentina as well. The steak in Argentina is fabulous. I developed a condition during pregnancy which creates extra water around the baby. Doctors don't find causes yet. Now that is called polyhydramnion, I think, if I remember rightly. I actually had that, Georgelina. I had a huge amount of water around my son. In fact, I put on 4 stone when I was pregnant with my son. He's 15 now. A whole amount of water, and I was tested for gestationals. Yeah, it is. See, I remember the name, polyhydramnion. So, and I remember tested for diabetes and everything else, because I was huge. I was really, really big. But Georgelina, my son is 15. I did have a cesarean as well, but all was good. So I'm sending you best wishes, lots of love, lots of strength. I know it's a worrying time when you are pregnant, but just so you know, I had that too, and my son was absolutely fine as well. So sending you all lots of love. I hope that kind of helped a little bit of an explanation about EMDR. I hope you all have a fabulous day, and I will catch you all soon.